Now let us begin the session. Welcome back, my dear colleagues, participants and dignitaries. So let us begin with 9th technical session on smart building energy system. The distinguished to honor us with his presence is Dr. VSKV Harish. Let me introduce him to all of you. Dr. VSKV Harish has worked as an assistant professor with the Department of Electrical Engineering, Pandit Deen Dayal Energy University, Gandhinagar. He is joining soon in Electrical Engineering Department, Netaji Subhash Institute of Technology, New Delhi. He had completed his ME with gold medal in power engineering from Jadavpur University in 2012 and PhD from IIT Roorkee in Feb 2017, both with MHRD fellowship. After his PhD, he worked as a postdoctoral fellow at TERI School of Advanced Studies, New Delhi, under Netherlands government-sponsored project, which is on smart grid for rural India. He has been nominated for the prestigious Young Energy Researcher Award in 2016 and in 2018 at this world prestigious Young Energy Researcher Award at World Sustainable Energy Days, Austria. He has been awarded with several Best Paper Awards at Springer and IEEE International Conferences in November 2018, October 2019, and August 2020. He was granted international travel support by DST in 2014 and 2018 and by Soft Computing Research Society India in 2017. He has published several research papers in journals and conferences of international repute. He has published book chapter with CRC Press, Taylor and Francis and Springer, with the Taylor and Francis book on renewable integrated building to be published by December 2021. He is also member in various society and institutions like ASHARE, IEEE, SCRS, CIBSE, etc. His research interests include building energy systems and power system analysis. So it will be my delight to invite Dr. VSKV Harish for his insightful thoughts. Sir, please.
Thank you very much, madam. Can I share my screen now, ma'am? Hello. Is the screen visible?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
A very good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for the introduction, madam. I hope all of you are safe in this time of pandemic. The concept which I will be majorly focusing on for the next hour or so is on the grid interactive building energy systems, which is a concept of smart grid. And we will be looking into, of course, you are already on the almost half 50% of this program. So the focus will be where a building energy system comes in integrative with the smart grid scenario and how is its integration. So we will be looking into that aspect also. And we also know that the pandemic situation has made a lot of us to work from homes. So just a thought to be seen in that post pandemic and during this situation as well, it is high time that we think about smart homes and smart residential buildings with due regards to smart villages and smart cities concept as well. With this thought, let us move forward. The major focus will be on identifying the buildings as a sector, as a fast responsive energy system entity, but without neglecting the occupants' comfort. As we have seen, if you would see a large amount of studies that are already available for energy efficient building or demand response in buildings which do not take into due consideration of the comfort of the occupants. Whenever we talk about energy efficiency of the building, majorly the focus has been on the architectural design side or the component design side, which can be lighting system or a heating, ventilation and an air conditioning system. But when we talk about demand response, the occupant's comfort is not taken into consideration, but the behavior is taken into consideration because their demand response can be a large number of types, but large number of papers, several papers are available on the price based demand response. on the price based demand response is nothing but changing the behavioral pattern of a particular load as according to the distribution company's energy supply scenario or the electricity supply scenario, right? But the occupant's comfort, whether an occupant is thermally comfort or visually comfort or the indoor air quality is there or not, will be looking into consideration. Also, post-pandemic scenario, the standards of air conditioners are changing, where new standards are coming up. The amendments are being made so that within a building space, the chances of the virus transmission among the occupants reduces over a prolonged period of time, right? So that means the indoor air quality in terms of CO2 concentration in parts per million needs also be changed. That means the air conditioner mass flow rate needs to be changed. That means the electrical loading demand for a particular time period will be changed, which in turn will of course be acting as a cumulative load. If we have an aggregator in the coming microgrid scenario with increased amalgamation of distributed energy systems, will be focused upon the distribution utility. So let us first have a brief overlook of why we have taken buildings as a service sector for the research study and what is the energy analysis and the energy usage scenario. If you see here, this is the plot that I have taken for the building energy statistics for the for Indian under the Indian context. Here we can see that buildings over the sector-wise energy consumption, because after Niti Aayog's draft national energy policy of 2016, buildings have been started to regard as a service sector, just like transportation, manufacturing, so on and so forth. Buildings has been regarded as a service sector, right? And in that sector, if you could say that 33% of the total energy demand in 2018 has come from the buildings, that is 1/3 of it, right? Inside the buildings, if we take this subset, magnify it, and we can see that residential buildings demand about 24% of the energy demand, whereas commercial buildings demand about 9%. And this is where it is still a very open research area on quantifying in the building sector about which subsector is responsible for how much amount of energy demand. Because we, as I told you, it was recently that it has been regarded as a service sector or an energy consumption sector. So a large number of studies are now being worked upon with commercial backup, with funding agencies, that we need to record and analyze what is the building energy usage for a particular scenario. In that energy usage, one of the major form of the energy utilization is in the form of electrical energy, because large number of automation have taken into consideration. Lifts have come in, elevators have come in. Initially, here now in Gandhinagar where I stay, we have only a 3-floor or 3-story buildings and it has a lift. 10 years back, for a 3-story buildings, there was no lift, right? Now, when it has a lift or an elevator, there will be certain amount of motors which are being worked upon either by the supply, or it will always have a diesel generator backup, right? So that means it is directly running upon giving a service, running upon electrical energy. If we take about the electricity consumption by end use, again in the Indian concept scenario, again taken from the report published in 2019, if you see the residential buildings, if you cumulate the air conditioners, coolers, fans, lights, and you keep out the refrigeration, you can see that lighting and the conditioning of the building space, indoor space, takes up amount more than 60% of the total energy usage for residential buildings. Now let us come for commercial buildings. In the commercial buildings also, the HVAC, which is an acronym for heating, ventilation and air conditioning system, is responsible for 55% of the electricity consumption, whereas the lighting is responsible for 25% of the electricity consumption. Why I am showing you these statistics is because when I talk about the grid interactive building energy systems under a smart grid scenario, the major components or services that are being responsible for the electricity usage are: number one, the heating, ventilation, air conditioning system, then lighting system or electric motors, depending upon the functionality of the building. For example, if there is a commercial building or a municipal building, your motor load is higher, right? Now, this is something which is very latest. As you can see, this is coming from the 2020 report. Then that during the pandemic scenario, ASHRAE, International Energy Agency, all the large governing bodies sat together and looked into what are the chances that by which that if we open up, if the lockdown gets open up and people are being allowed, like some 20-30 people are allowed to sit in a room with a single central air conditioner, what are the chances of the virus transmission if any one of the person, one of the inhabitant is infected with the virus, right? So that means we need to first quantify, look around over the indoor air quality, and also look for what are the air pollutants which are there inside. Because it's not that we have to look only for the SARS-CoV-2, we have to take into consideration that what are the different scenarios of pollutants that can be there inside a building. So this slide shows that out of SO2, NOx gases and particulate matter 2.5, the PM 2.5 accounts for 54% inside the building air usage. This is about the indoor air quality, not the outdoor air quality. This is about the indoor air quality, right? Now, when the title is Grid Interactive Building Energy System, so it is imperative that we define and understand what exactly is a building energy system. See, building energy system is nothing but any system which is responsible for the energy usage or utilization within a building space. It can be a process or equipment or machinery or a combination of them. It can be anything, both. So we defined we understood what a building energy system is. Now let us understand why we talk about grid interactive and how do we look into the smart grid scenario. If we look into the smart grid scenario, this is a conceptual model which is done by the National Institute of Standards and Technology of US, which has given us an updated conceptual model. The original model was in 2012 of smart grid, where the markets was not taken into consideration. Now we have the electrical, this dotted line shows the physical cable connections, electrical connections, whereas the solid line shows the communication networks, right? And the major smart grid definitions that are needed to be understand, that to be taken into consideration are, the very first one is that of the European Technology Innovation Platform, which regards smart grid as an energy network that is responsible for the usage of electricity efficiently and effectively with a maximum of reliability, right? International Energy Agency says that we should work about the reliability, but also take into consideration that the electricity which is being available for the delivery should be affordable by the end users. The International Electrotechnical Commission stresses the concept of flexibility, interactivity, interoperability of the smart grid. Interoperability is a very interesting term. Again, let me say, just a second. This is something that is really coming up, is a term called as interoperability. Interoperability means when you talk about the smart grid, we have seen that there are different sets of players which are involved. So different set of ownership will be there. And of course, if I think few of the lectures will also be on the power system re-regulation and restructuring. So you will understand what I'm trying to say here. Now, if there is a communication which is happening between the electricity markets and the transmission, and this communication affects how the transmission and distribution are being talking to each other, how transmission and all the generation sources are talking to each other, and how the transmission is being operated by particular operators, which is of course nothing but the power system operator and controller, which is POSOCO in India, right? So all of this communication has to be compatible in nature, For example, if I develop a certain scenario, if I develop a code, for example, in MATLAB, and I send it to you over email, if you don't have a MATLAB, you can open it on Notepad, right? So I have a star.m file. you may not be able to operate the star.f file, but you are able to see it in some other software, right? And we both can talk to each other through the communication channel of Gmail or any email, right? Similarly, the smart grid scenario talks about interoperability, where all the different players, as you can see, can be compatible so that they are talking to each other without any much loss of information. So this is what came up from the International Electrotechnical Commission's smart grid definition. Then the definition was from European Commission, which again defined the smart grid as the energy networks that automatically monitor the flows of energy from the sources to various load points and adjust to those sources depending upon the demand and also the supply. That means the thing that we learn very famously in power system operation and control subject is that the power generation at any time should be equal to the power of the load demanded plus losses. That means this is nothing but in terms of reliability, we are able to do it and reach it, and the power system remains flexible and also is resilient. Combining all these definitions, the Ministry of Power through National Smart Grid Mission defines the smart grid as an electrical grid which has the capability of automation, communication, and information technology systems in order to monitor the power flows from the generation point up till the consumption point beyond the meter. This is very critical. Up till the consumption point, appliance level beyond the meter, and control that power flow in order to match the generation and demand. So this is where the building HVAC control and the lighting system control comes into the picture. Because the smart grid says that, okay, you put ICT technologies, you put IoTs. See, always remember there is a difference between building automation system, smart building, and a smart grid integrated building. There are very thin differences. Just like there is a difference between power systems, modern power systems, smart grid, futuristic power grid. If we talk about wireless transmission of high voltages, high power, then we are talking about futuristic power grid, right? So there are very thin line of differences between them. So if a particular scenario that is from the distribution transformer or before that, like from 66 kV to 6.6 kV, then the different feeders. So it is, and if it has a distribution system operator or an aggregator, and that particular operator is able to monitor the power flow to each and every house going inside for each and every load. That is intrusive load monitoring, right? So that is what, in an extent, the work that I would be presenting before you is trying to achieve. So having understood about this, let us now jump into how does the grid interactive building energy system concept comes into the picture. See, not only in about the facility in India, but also all over the world, a large number of scenarios were worked upon where we regarded the buildings as one of the sector which can be a fast responsive entity and support the grid both in terms of active power flow, which is the frequency control, and in terms of reactive power flow, which is the voltage control, right? So they regarded that which buildings will be able to do it. So they provided a knowledge base and said that for a particular period of time, they would create certain embedded system based coding mechanism in which a particular building which will be supporting the grid will be regarded as a good grid citizen. Grid citizen. This is a new word which is creeping up, which is coming up right now, right? That is because, see, if we keep the research papers aside and look practically, if I am sitting here inside my room, I'm paying my bills, I have an electricity connection from the distribution utility, not bothering about what time of the day it is. If I switch on a switch or any of the load, it has to work, boss. There is a mechanism, there is a binding contract between me and the distribution utility कि अगर मैंने स्विच ऑन किया तो बल्ब को जलना ही पड़ेगा, right? If depending upon the scenarios, depending upon the demand response, if I am doing it at a particular peak period of time where the distribution utility is saying that the cost of electricity usage at that particular period of time will be at a higher price, that is okay, but that needs to be communicated to me. That is okay, but you cannot say that okay, the electricity supply will not be given to us. That is the reason why reliability in the smart grid definitions, that is the reason why I have given you the smart grid definitions, that reliability is one of the major aspects. So load shedding is not a thing that you can come into the picture right now for the frequency support unless and until you go at a situation of a brownout or a blackout, right? So you have the regulations, like if you go to the Central Electricity Authority website, CEA website, you have the technical standards and regulations for operation. What happens when the load is increased and the supply is not there? So they go from 49.95 to 50.05 of the frequency band. And if it is being reduced to 49.95, all the governor control actions will take place. Even then, if it reaches 48.75, for every 0.5% drop, there will be a 6% of the load shedding for that particular bus, right? So that is also there in the regulation. So that is the reason why now it makes technical and economic sense also that the building is regarded as to be a responsible grid citizen, where the occupant inside may or may not be willing to participate because of the lack of knowledge. But as a distribution system operator, I'm talking about smart grid. So when I talk about smart grid, that means think of it as soon as someone says smart grid, think of as an active distribution network, not a passive distribution network, right? So you have, as you have a power system operation and controller, POSOCO, you also have a distribution system operator. So the distribution system operator will be responsible for that. That means the building level, the building scale strategies will become a critical component about the transformation of an existing power grid into a smart grid. And also right now there is a large amount of stress on the 100% decarbonization society. So that is also taken into the consideration. But the papers that I have studied, and at the parallel, the reports, the white papers which are come up from the philanthropic, humanitarian and NGOs, non-governmental organizations, there is still a lack of knowledge and a lack of incentive to encourage that a building owner or a building manager to become a good grid citizen, right? They are not being encouraged upon. So I really thank Dr. Viral sir for giving me an opportunity through this program to have taken this into consideration, that buildings as a sector has to be responsible for the capacity building of the researchers and all the people who are being participating in this course. So how do we so what we have understood up till now is the introduction, background, and motivated ourselves that okay, so let us look into the grid interactive building energy system if the building have to be taken into consideration as an energy responsive entity which will come for the support of the grid. How do we understand it? How do we strategize it? How do we analyze it? So there are different approaches that are being worked upon. One of the approaches that I have used in my study will be presented before you. The very first step is to model the building energy system control. See, if you take any of the energy conservation or energy control mechanisms, they all work together with an intelligent building technology, IoT, smart building automation systems in order to improve the energy performance and the building performance. So building energy control systems, the building energy control systems are the basic entities in building energy management for attaining the energy efficiency, energy conservation, sustainability, and good building performance. Similar to building energy control systems, we also have building automation systems and building energy management systems, which involve the smart monitoring, metering in order to control the indoor climatic conditions of the building energy system. Whatever building energy control systems that you work upon, the most significant part is modeling, right? In almost all control projects, it is crucial that you have precise models of the buildings, and you work upon this building energy consumption system. In general, and we will look into what building energy by building energy modeling, what I am really stressing upon. The second thing is that you model a building energy system, then you model the control systems, and you work the building energy systems in such a way that if an occupant says that through this remote control, I have put it at a 26 degrees Celsius as a thermostat, it has to work. The condenser will keep on working, and the mass flow rate will be keep on giving us the cool air unless and until it reaches the tolerance level of the set point value. So you work on the deadband and the PI controller mechanism. After this, the step 2 is at parallelly, we should also model the grid dynamics, the power grid dynamics. What are the equations that need to be worked upon? For this particular talk, I will be presenting before you the active power control. So I will be working on the power system dynamics and the stability equations. Then what, as I told you, that it is imperative that we take into consideration the occupancy dynamics as well. This is something which came up during this is without the step 2, step 1 and step 3 was my PhD work. But while doing the postdoc, we had the successful completion postdoc success party in Netherlands. And when we visited there last year in February 2020, what I saw was the Eindhoven University of Technology Netherlands, a beautiful campus, one of the campuses which does not have a security guard. So it is a free walk-in campus. So when we went there, and there are a large number of people who don't use motorbikes, but they use bicycles, right? Now, when we reached there, my principal investigator of the project, maybe she was running late, so she was also on the bicycle. Her office was on the 4th floor, and she's a good enthusiast, clean energy enthusiast. So she never uses the elevator, so she uses the stairs. Now, as I told you, we visited in February. The temperature was very low. The HVAC, heating, ventilation and air conditioning system, was given the command to heat. And it is a fully automated building. And it has won several awards. But because my principal investigator was getting late for the meeting, she parked the bicycle, climbed 4 floors, went to the office, was using the remote for cooling, but because it is fully automated, the cooling was not coming. Would you say it as a smart grid scenario or a smart thing? If you have something automation, or if you have something which will reduce energy consumption, it will never reach the smartness if the building's functionality is being compromised, right? So it is, of course, it becomes a very complex scenario because it becomes a multi-criteria decision-making scenario. It is just like if you want to reach from Delhi to Ahmedabad, there are different modes of transportation. And depending upon you want minimal time or minimal cost, the mode of transportation changes, right? So similarly, there is a multi-criteria decision making. So that also I will present before you what is the multi-objective optimization that we have worked upon. And the last step is the implementation, evaluation, and the fault detection and diagnosis. This is one of the last step, but will not be presented because it is completely on hardware infrastructure. And I am looking for funding. We have written one project for EU India. And as soon as the funding, if granted, we will be working on this. The step 4, the smart grid scenario, the implementation scenario, sorry. So now let us look into the step 1, which is the building energy control modeling. See, building energy modeling is nothing but a system or a mathematical modeling system which describes the behavior of the particular system under study. That particular system under study is, which is the building energy system, is made up of 3 blocks. One is the input variable block, the energy system in itself, and the output variable block. The process of modeling is knowing the information, getting the information about any one of the block when information about the other 2 blocks is already available to you. For example, if I know, if I have a building energy system, if I have a box, I give it to you the box, you don't know what is inside the box, you give some input variables, get the output variables, you use input output relationship regression numerical method analysis in order to get the input output relationship. That way you are saying that this is what my building energy system modeling is. It's called as gray box modeling, right? If you know each and everything about the building energy system through the governing equations, through the governing laws. For example, the Ohm's law, Kirchhoff's law, or the Newton's law of cooling, whatever it is. If you know the theoretical laws, you give certain number of input variables, maybe a sinusoidal input or a step input or any one of the test inputs, and you get the output variables. Such a modeling procedure is called as white box modeling, right? White box modeling means you know each and everything about the building energy system under study. Whereas the black box modeling is you are not knowing anything about the building energy system under study. You give certain inputs, get the outputs, and your procedure of modeling is getting the input output relationship. You also have gray box modeling, which is a concept of combination of white box modeling and black box modeling. Why? Because white box models are the most accurate models, but depending upon the model's complexity, they demand a large number of computational power. Whereas black box models are very simple models, but they lack accuracy. Gray box model is a combination of them, where few of the parameters we work upon the experiments, and the larger scenario we work upon the governing mathematical equations by which we can model it. Now the parameters that I have used in this building energy models are the parameters that you are seeing on your screen. The nature of the parameters means the control strategy that I have developed will be able to control the room air temperature and the internal heat gains and the ventilation rate, and all the other parameters are uncontrollables. That means either I will model them as inputs or I will model them as the system disturbances, right? R and NR stands for the residential or the non-residential category. There is one limitation of the work that I am presenting before you. There is one limitation of the work. We can discuss on it, and at the end, if you have, we can work on it. But there is one limitation that I have shown a variable as uncontrollable, but in actuality, in practicality, it is controllable in nature, right? So I will leave it with that thought to you. And because we have to model the building energy systems, we use thermal electrical analogy, which is universal in nature. The thermal electrical analogy is based upon, for electrical systems, we know that the power flow or the electric current flows from a higher potential point to the lower potential point. Similarly, the heat flows from a higher temperature region to a lower temperature region, right? So the temperature in thermal engineering will be modeled as a potential voltage. The heat flow rate Q dot in thermal engineering will be modeled as the electrical current, the heat capacity as a capacitance, the heat conductivity as the electrical conductivity, the temperature gradient dou capital T by dou X will be regarded as dou capital V by dou X, and the rate of temperature rise, which is dou capital T by dou small t, will be modeled as dou capital V by dou small t. Taking that into consideration, we will model the single room building energy system. Now we have to model it mathematically. Now I would request you to look around the space which you are sitting right now. If you look around, you will see that geometrically you are sitting inside a cuboid. Geometrically, right? Where you have walls, you have a roof, and you have a ceiling. So you have 4 walls, you have 1 ceiling, 1 roof, and 1 floor, right? So we will model each and every wall as a 3 resistor 2 capacitance network, as a second order system. So every wall which is responsible for the heat. Why we are doing it? This is because depending on what happens actually is the internal surface temperature of the wall dictates how much amount, how the temperature inside the building space will be due to convection and conduction, heat flow. And this the air temperature becomes the loading on the air conditioner system, right? So, and the air conditioner system, depending upon this heating load or cooling load, will work and will dictate how much amount of electrical load demand it is demanding from that distribution utility at particular period of time. So we didn't have the funding for the experimental analysis. So we need to work upon the background flow of energy where it is being created. So that is what we are doing right now. So if you take this wall, for example, the other surface temperature will be regarded just like a potential, and that's what is being regarded as T out. Then this particular wall is being modeled as 3 resistor 2 capacitance network because it is obstructing the heat flow, and also because of the nature of the materials by which this wall has been made up, it will also consume some amount of this heat flow, right? So that is where is being the temperature flow, and so the rate of change of temperature will be obstructed, and that is being modeled as a thermal capacitance, right? Yes, you can model it as 2 resistance, 1 capacitance also. You can model it as 4 resistances, 3 capacitances also. But when we talk about the second order system in control theory, we have studied that the performance characteristics, rise time, settling time, peak time are better. And through this, through Ziegler-Nichols or any of the traditional methods, I can tune the Kp, Ti values of my PID controllers. So if you look around here, if you apply the KCL, Kirchhoff's current law here on this node and Kirchhoff's current law here on this node, you can see that you will get 2 ordinary differential equations, thereby making it as a second order system. You can take the Laplace transform of these 2 equations and you can model it as a transfer function also. Now the problem is, as I told you, that this is a wall which is also regarded as building construction element, that is BCE. We don't have the experimental analysis. So how do we say what should be the value of R1, R2, R3 and what should be the value of C1 and C2? For this, what we have done is we have developed a non-linear time invariant optimization algorithms. When we talk about this building space or a building wall from the manufacturer, we get 2 particular values about the thermophysical properties of the system. Thermophysical properties are the thickness of the layer in meters, thermal conductivity of the layer in watt meter per Kelvin, density, specific thermal capacity, and the number of layers of the building space. Depending upon all these values, we calculate the total thermal resistance of that particular wall and calculate the total thermal capacitance of that particular wall. Then we look around that, okay, all these resistances whose values I need to find out will be regarded as R1 plus R2 plus R3 is equal to RTH, or in generic form, summation of I equal to 1 up till N, which is 3, Ri will be equal to RTH. Similarly, the summation of J equal to 1 up till K, Ci will be equal to Cth, right? So this becomes my decision variables. But in order to make this, that I know that this will always be some fraction of the total thermal resistance. So I take it in the fractions and my unknown vector becomes augmented unknown vector becomes x1, x2, x3 augmented by y1 and y2. So this is what I need to find out in my optimization algorithm, right? So how do we do that? What we do is we know that a numerical model, a model which is solved by numerical analysis and analytical analysis, is the most accurate model. So what I do is, for the same building energy construction element that I am talking about, like this cuboid, just a second, let me add a slide here so that it will be easy for you to understand. Yeah. So what we will do is we will take this particular 3R2 resistance network. We'll take this particular 3R2C network, which is my first particular building energy wall, right? I will give it a step input, right? All these resistances and capacitances values will have a guess value, right? So I will get an error output, erroneous output. I will take one simple network, use the site analysis, model it as numerically, through partial differential equations. I will give the same input here and I will get the output, which I will say is the most accurate output. But the problem with this is that it is a second order system and this numerical model becomes a 20th order system. So the time limitation or the time constraint makes me to use this 3R2C network. I will take this erroneous output, compare it with this output, get the error, and my optimization algorithm objective function will become minimization of this particular error. And what I need to find out? The X vector augmented Y vector. Because actually, if I am saying that I have taken guess values of Ri and Cj, that means I have taken the guess values of all these X's and all these Y's. That's what our optimization algorithm does. And that's how we got the published paper in applied energy. Now that is for now this we do it for one wall because this one wall is 3R2C network. We are in a cuboid, so 6 different walls will come, right? So for each wall we will work on this optimization algorithm so that we are able to estimate the parameters of all the 3 resistances and the 2 capacitances. Now that is for an unconditioned space. Now we require the model for a heating, ventilation and air conditioning system. So what we did was we took a all seasonal air conditioning system from the ASHRAE's handbook, which is the American Society for Heating, Refrigeration, Air Conditioner Engineers. And the traditionally, so the baseline, my benchmark scenario is a PID controlled mechanism. Though it is a conventional thing, it is still being used upon. So uncontrolled, and this is again one of the research gap that we addressed, that we are not taking an uncontrolled system as a benchmark and saying that our system is much better. We are already taking a better situation as the benchmark, and the multi-criteria decision-making control strategy will be compared upon this PID controlled based mechanism. So of course the output will be the heating value of HVAC. Now you will ask me, sir, why it is the heating value? If the heating value is less than 0, it's called as cooling. I told you, right, the heat is regarded as current. So we know when the current is negative. When the current is negative that means it is not a load, it's a source, right? Similarly, if HVAC, Q dot HVAC is less than 0, it is providing cooling. If it is greater than 0, it is providing heating, right? And apart from that, we also look into, because I told you that we also work upon the indoor air quality, that is the mass flow rate. It is in terms of the number of number of air changes per hour, which is regarded as the building space, ventilation and infiltration. This is the test case scenario that we have taken into consideration. These are the parameter values that we have again taken from the ASHRAE test case. Just like how we model, develop a distribution system mechanism or a transmission system mechanism, and we take IEEE test bus system. Similarly, we took a ASHRAE test wall. So this is the optimization algorithm that I'm taking. I told you that this is a numerical model. This is a numerical model. We achieve for one wall, we achieve this 3R2C network, and this is the optimization algorithm. We work upon the optimization algorithm where we compute the square root of the sum squared error of both the responses, and then we minimize that and we get the values of R's and C's. So the reduced order model, as I told you, we are looking inside a cuboid which also has 2 windows taken into consideration, will be modeled as like this, where each and every box here represents a 3 resistance and 2 capacitance network. If you want to see how a full scale model looks like, this is how a full scale model looks like, where you have a ceiling, an external wall, a window on the external wall. Because window allows a large number of solar radiation coming into the picture, so we model it as a single order network only. Then you have a partition wall. Let us take this as a partition wall. Then you have another partition wall, and you also have a floor. So actually what I talked about, what I told you about, that this is how the blocks will look like. In actually the full scale model will be looking like this scenario. Now I have a building energy system which is being controlled. The temperature and the relative humidity is being controlled upon by the heating, ventilation, air conditioning system also. And because I want to work on the control strategy, so I want to reduce the computational demand. So I have developed a reduced order modeling architecture as well. Now the time has come that we work upon the occupancy scenarios also. That for particular, when I run the model, when I simulate the model, for example, for 24-hour period or a 1 week period or a 1 season period, what will be my occupant's comfort? The occupant's comfort has been taken into consideration, taking into the thermal comfort, visual comfort in illumination index, and indoor air quality in CO2 concentration per ppm, parts per million. Here there is one limitation of my work that I have not taken into consideration, the sound quality, which is the acoustic comfort, has not been taken into consideration. And it makes sense also because my major focus is on the heating, ventilation and air conditioning system, as I told you in the introduction slide only, and also the lighting system. So when I have these two components to be worked upon as a control strategy, that means the distribution system operator should be able to change the thermostat set point of the remote and also able to change the illumination level of the required illumination level of the this building space. So the acoustic comfort has been not been taken into consideration. So this is what we have taken. So we have used a comfort index and we want to maximize the occupant's comfort index, maximize the thermal comfort, visual comfort and the indoor air quality. And we have given certain weighing factors as well. Why? Because how should I say? Let us think of you only, you who's watching this webinar, and the same person which you are, the metabolism is different of operation. If you are staying inside a room, just think of it that right now you are inside a library, right? If you are not doing any heavy work and only studying, you don't require that much amount of cooling, right? Maybe you require very good visual comfort because you are reading stuff. So you will be giving much more weightage to this parameter. Now take a turn. Same thing, same hour of the day, you have gone to a gym, right? Because you are working out, depending upon your own metabolism, you would require much more of a thermal comfort. So you require much more of a air conditioning system, maybe not of a visual comfort, and much more of a indoor air quality. So you will be giving more weightage to this weighing factor. So what I'm trying to tell you is that the significance of these weighing factors are that we are taking into consideration the different buildings functionality for this particular multi-objective or multi-criteria decision strategy. So one of the objective is maximization of the comfort. The another strategy is minimization of energy. The energy, of course, is the HVAC system and the lighting energy system, and that the model has been already been developed upon. So we know that a multi-objective optimization does not have a single solution, but a Pareto front comes up. So it has a solution which has different strategies. These are certain sample solutions that I have taken into consideration. Why the sample solutions are this is because you can see that the comfort index is 98.95, 99%. So I wanted to achieve a high comfort index problem and also for the lower comfort index problem. You can see that for lower comfort indexes, your energy consumption is low, which makes sense. And for higher comfort indexes, your energy consumption is in 60 kilowatt hour, right? This is for the simulation period. So you can understand that for higher comfort index, your energy consumption is more. So what I'm trying to do is I am giving the occupant, just like you have a fan knob where you can change the fan knob depending upon what comfort you want. Similarly, think of it that you have a knob given to the occupant's comfort that the occupant can operate for a higher comfort. So the energy consumption will more, or the lower comfort so that the energy consumption is low, right? And if you see for a 24-hour period, how my parameters are taking into consideration. If you take the thermostat set point setting as this value, with a PID control HVAC system, the variability of the building space indoor air temperature is like that. And the variability with multi-criteria decision strategy is like here. So you are getting much better control as compared to this scenario, right? And of course, similarly for the building space indoor air quality and also for the illumination level. And you can see that the occupants index is occupants comfort is more, minimum being reached at 78.86 or something percentage, that is 0.7886 something, and the maximum you are reaching up till 99.86 percentage. These are the energy savings. Now you can, if you look at the this we have bifurcated in terms of HVAC, lighting, and the total energy saving. Now you will say that the total energy saving is less, but mind you, I will also like to bring to your kind attention that the occupants comfort is also improved a lot, right? So you are, there is a win-win situation here. You are getting the lower energy consumption also, but you are also improving upon the occupants comfort, right? Achha, there is one another thing here. There is again one another limitation of my work here. If you see in one of the plots in, I think the limitation is being shown in all the plots. But if you see here in this particular slide, there is again one limitation of my work here, which right now I am trying to work upon my study as well. Now the very interesting things that comes into the picture is that how do we model the grid dynamics? How do we model the grid dynamics? Because as I told you that we want to work upon the grid interactive building energy systems. We have developed our strategies. We have developed our local control strategies where locally the energy control will happen for a building energy system. What will happen is we will develop an aggregator. What the aggregator will do is it will record all the control strategies for each and every building component, and we will model it as a state space. Why? Because for every time period, the state of the control action that is needed to be taken, that the state of the system, the set of the variables which are giving us the behavior of the system will change, right? So I will develop them as a state space equation. I will have an aggregator. The aggregator will develop for a cluster of buildings so that the kilowatt level cluster of buildings, so that the kilowatt power level gets maximum to hundreds of kilowatt or to a megawatt level. That is the grid level, right? Then I will model the grid dynamics modeling through this swing equation. Right? Where we know that this is the Mk is the inertia coefficient and Dk is the damping coefficient, which will give us the behavior of the network. See, what I'm trying to say here is, if like for a system, I know this can be a grid. Then we have a transformer, let us say 66 kV to 6.6 kV. Then I have, let me draw a line, a cable, a line only. Let us say a line only because it is overhead distribution line. We will not say cable. It does not have insulation. So I can model this as a pi section line in MATLAB or PSCAD, whatever you want to do. Then at this particular level, you have different other industrial loads and everything. So I will model it as a load again, which I will model it as a constant impedance load. Then again, I will have a transformer where the transformer will take this 6.6 kV into 400 volt, for example, and then I will have all the loads, right? So you will have a control mechanism for a building here, control mechanism for buildings here. Then at this situation, you will have an aggregator, and this will be controlled through here via our distribution system operator. There can be different topologies or different mechanisms over here as well. Now, when such is the condition, we need to take into consideration that, okay, there is a grid here, and the grid is regarded as something like, okay, I have studied single machine infinite bus, so we can understand how do we able to do it. So I will take into consideration the relative phase angle delta, which is nothing but the rotor angle with respect to some rotating reference frame. The rotating reference frame is rotating with a speed of right, which is nothing but 100 pi radians per second. With reference to this, what will be my taking into consideration will be delta. So I'll get this equation. So I can use this equation. This is a simple textbook equation. I need not model more on that. But the interesting thing here is this parameter which you are seeing on your screen, this PLK parameter is what will be dictated by the building aggregator load, aggregated buildings load. Aggregated buildings load. Aggregated buildings load, right? And we know what this PGK will be. This will be nothing but the power flowing between different lines. So what I will do, I will write this PGK will be a parameter of the lines which is connecting, as I told you, this pi section line, for example, connecting between bus J and bus K times this relative phase angle of bus G with respect to time minus this K, sorry, not J, with respect to time. Active power flow, right? And also I know that I will take into consideration the load, the PLK, the aggregated buildings load. So this will be regarded as what do we use here? PLK. This PLK for any particular system is some factor which will take into consideration the variation in the phase angle plus some other factor f of k which will be taken into consideration plus that's it, right? No, plus the summation of the loads which is coming from the HVAC system and the lighting system for building L. So if you take the total number of buildings is capital L, there is one load which is frequency. This is frequency sensitive, uncontrollable load. Frequency sensitive, uncontrollable load at that particular bus K. Uncontrollable load at this particular bus K. This is a very simple power system analysis and dynamics equation. And if you see here, this f of k will become the insensitive uncontrollable load. Frequency insensitive uncontrollable load. If you want to understand this more clearly, I think you can go through the Wood and Woolenberg's or any of the Prabha Kundur's power system stability and the operation control, and there we written here. If you see, I should write here k. This del dot k is nothing but omega k only for this purpose, because I will model this, as I told you, as the state space equation, where is x dot, which is del dot. It has been written like this. So this is what I'm trying to do, or what I'm trying to tell you is the augmented power system dynamics. The augmented power system dynamics that will be taken into the consideration where we are talking about how do we do it. So after this, we take into consideration, for example, the dynamics about the x dot gk augmented will be equal to the system matrix for all the deltas and omegas, the system matrix for all the HVAC power loads, the system matrix for all the lighting loads of T, all the lighting loads. Then, so this is the system matrix, system matrix, system matrix. Then the input output system matrix of the all the loads on the buses, input output system matrices. Let me say this as BM. Input output system matrices which are not being controlled and already there. So these are for the uncontrolled system. So we need to develop an integrated frame of controls which work on this. Of course, there are different mechanisms which can be worked upon, a model predictive control or a normal input output control, or all things that can be looked upon it. How does physically the system work is something which is there through this. One of the our published work is one of the scenarios here. Again, I will tell you that there is no universally accepted topology for here. You can model it differently through an aggregator or something. Here is one of the things where we have taken into consideration a particular building which will have an on-site renewable energy generation, different loads, smart sensing mechanism, the energy storage aspects both in battery energy and also TESS. TESS is the thermal energy storage systems, and the optimization algorithm that we have worked upon will also be taken into consideration and will be communicating through the distribution utility through the smart meters. And the smart meter will dictate how and how much amount of the power will be taken into consideration, right, of the power flow. Also, when we talk about the buildings to grid integration, the concept that is being worked upon right now is the peer-to-peer power sharing model here. Again, this is also one of the architecture that we have used in our published work of a journal in Springer, where because where we have certain buildings which will have a rooftop solar PV, right? And the same mechanisms. There will be certain buildings, maybe due to economic situation or the surrounding situation, they are not getting good solar profile. But as I told you, that one of the intent has also been to create a fully decarbonized society. So in order, that means we want to give supply to a particular building or a household which is less of a grid dependent, especially in developing countries like India, where our grid is majorly fossil fuel dependent in terms of operation. And also they can participate in the green energy scenario. So they don't require a diesel generator backup set. So I'm not talking about the hybrid renewable energy system, but an integrated renewable energy system. So there will be building which does not have a rooftop solar PV connected together, creating a microgrid scenarios. And we developed a grid ready solution. Why we developed a grid ready solution is because India is, this is the work that I'm presenting before you is what we did for a pilot project in Bake Bazar in Gaya, Bake Bazar area in Gaya in Bihar for rural households. And that is the reason why we have a different third party centralized peer-to-peer station. If you look into some of the many papers, you don't have a centralized P2P station. You have a completely distributed, decentralized network, right? There are three types: centralized, decentralized, and distributed network. So completely distributed network where you do not have a centralized P2P station. But the thing is that if I will not have a centralized P2P station, see the centralized P2P station here, what it is doing, it is allowing all the power to be communicated, all the power flow to be happening among this microgrid scenario and applying the all the algorithms or we have developed right now, right? Apart from this, because we want to do a peer-to-peer power sharing mechanism, at every hour of the day, say TH, there will be cost of buying electricity and there will be a cost of selling electricity. Now this cost is calculated depending upon the demand supply ratio of this particular microgrid, right? And then it will come up with some algorithms and it will come up with certain prices. That's what centralized P2P station does. If I don't have a centralized P2P station, that means I have to burden all the meter boxes of the households. No, those are rural households. They do not have the upfront cost capability of giving the upfront cost capability. So a third party philanthropic or some NGOs have to come up and develop this, and the centralized P2P station will be taken into consideration that the operation and maintenance of the microgrid will be there. The concept of peer-to-peer is nothing but that if I am a building and if there is a building in the vicinity I would want the power from that particular building at a certain cost in the re-regulated or a deregulated environment, right? But I would say as a re-regulated, not a deregulated environment, because it's a grid-ready solution. So we have regulations for the grid integration of DERs 2014 or 16 regulations of Central Electricity Authority. We have followed that. Though it is a completely isolated network right now, but with the advent of electrification being happening here, so the asset does not becomes obsolete. What we have developed through Terry and Eindhoven University of Technology, Netherlands. So we developed as a grid ready solution. When I say grid ready, that means all the regulations that have taken into consideration, which are being laid up down by the authority, Central Electricity Authority, has been taken into consideration. If you take, so let us understand what each and every particular building or a rural household has. Sir, madam, how much amount of time do you have more?
Dr. Harris, you can continue. We have still 15 minutes.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thanks. So let us understand that for when we talk about the grid interactive building energy system, we should also understand that, okay, the peer-to-peer is coming up right now. So let us also understand that what each and every building would have. If we talk about rooftop solar PV buildings, which will be regarded as prosumer, I think you must have heard about this term. A building which produces and which consumes and produces its own on-site energy. It will have a rooftop solar PV, the loads, the battery, meter and breakers. Of course, it will have an appropriate power electronic interfacing components. The interesting fact when we talk about the peer-to-peer power sharing mechanism is the consumer, a building which does not have a rooftop solar PV, will have a battery storage or a battery backup mechanism. Now it makes both. Now there are two reasons for it. The first is the technical reason, and the second one is the sustainable building, sustainable business reason. The first reason being that it helps to regulate the active power flow in the microgrid, because the arbitrage is being provided, right? So it makes sense that the storage is available. Now you will say, why would consumer want a battery if it does not have a rooftop solar PV, sir? The thing is, when we talk about peer-to-peer, we talk about each and every building being able to quote a price or provide a price at every hour of the day, the cost of buying electricity and cost of selling electricity. If the consumer does not have the battery, the consumer will not be able to sell power, because there will not be any voltage source. There will always be a sink of power. There will never be a source of power, right? So this will always be dictated by the number of prosumers in the microgrid, right? But if we have consumers with batteries, what will happen is, as I told you, that the costing is being worked upon depending upon the demand supply ratio at off-peak period of time. Maybe during the midnights, the consumer may quote for a price of buying electricity with a business sense that the price of electricity during the midnight is very, very low. I will consume that electricity, store my battery, so that the next day or the coming days, where the price of electricity is a little bit higher, I will feed it back to the grid. So it will make a profitable sense for a peer which does not have a rooftop solar PV. And it will also help the grid operator for the valley filling. So it is not going for a over frequency scenario, right? But it is making the frequency as stable as possible, which is again coming through the active power flow, right? So that is what one of the interesting concept here is, that for the consumers also we have the battery backups scenario or the battery storage. We tested our model for about 100 to 120 households or 120 buildings, above 120 with a ratio of, for every 2.5, for every 1.5 consumer, we had a equal power capability prosumer. Why? Because why this ratio is important is because that if you have like you take the scenario here. As I told you, right, though we developed a grid ready solution right now, we for physically it's an isolated system. So that means if all of them are maximum consumers, then there will be an under frequency operation, and we will not allow it because there will be more of a demand and less of a supply, right? And we never wanted to have a centralized storage. This is a battery, a centralized storage or a centralized generator. We don't have it, right? So when we don't have such a mechanism, then we need to make sure that my algorithm will work at a particular ratio of the prosumer and the consumer, so that the demand supply ratio is being maintained, right? So we did simulation for 3 household model, and we looked into consideration how much amount of excess power was available on the battery depending upon the SOC of the battery, because depending upon the SOCs of the battery only, we will be able to develop how much amount of power can flow from household 1 to household 2 and household 2 to household 3, or household 1 to household 3 via household 2, right? So different scenarios were being worked upon. We also compared the performance of our model with different already developed pilot projects. This is our project. This is developing and implementing smart grids of India through peer-to-peer. Then we have ME Solskjaer, which did this pilot in Bangladesh. Then we have a Grid Plus, Vanderborn, Okra Solar, and Brooklyn Microgrid. Accenture, I think, is Brooklyn Microgrid is developed by Power Ledger, and Accenture India with Terry and IIT Kanpur Shayad has made a consortium with Power Ledger, and they are developing UPERC, yes, Uttar Pradesh Electricity Regulatory Commission. They are working on this blockchain. I was invited for one of the conferences there, so there they made this announcement in the UPRC, maybe one of the few pilots in Lucknow. They are working on peer-to-peer. The work has already been started. Now the characteristics is that if the modeling is being available or not, or they are being done on the black box modeling. And what are the dynamic pricing strategies? Dynamic pricing strategy means that it will be time dependent, and also it should be able to scale up and scale down. What is the guarantee that I'm seeing? See, why I have taken the prosumer to consumer ratio, because if the scale up has happened, the consumer says that, okay, I have got the good economical sense. Now I want to install a rooftop solar PV. So the prosumer at that hour of the day may be coming to the consumer at that hour of the day may be regarded as the prosumer. So that's a scale up strategy. Few of the prosumer will say, nahi, maza nahi aa raha, I want to come out of this peer to peer because I cannot force them. So it will be a downscale also. So the dynamic pricing strategy will be affected. Forecasting studies. The forecasting, this is one of the lacking systems in my work. I have done the forecasting study only for 1 hour, but 15-minute forecasting study is being done right now. The scalability, as I told you, that I worked up till 1 million nodes, that is 1 million peers with good prosumer to consumer ratio. We had 2-stage control strategy. 1-stage control strategy is having inside the building space. Why it is having inside the building space is because, see, the power, the status that this particular household will be prosumer or consumer is being accountable at the meter at particular time sample, right? Let us say 1 hour. So I have to make sure that either the potential point at this point is higher or greater than the potential being maintained for this microgrid. Then only I will come to know that the power is being flowing from this point to this point or this point to this point. Why? Because even if the consumer says that I have power the next hour of the day and I want to sell it, my model will not work because it will follow the electrical dynamics. And the electrical dynamics says that the active power flows from the higher delta point to the lower delta point. And if it is a DC microgrid, from a higher potential point, from a lower potential point. That means if it is a DC microgrid, I am taking into consideration that inside the inverter, I have a control which is current tracking, right? So that I will able to get the DC power. Right? So this is what is being done. The energy, so we had two stage. One stage is that I am making sure that that load demand inside that buildings, inside that particular building, be it consumer or prosumer, is being satisfied. If it is not being satisfied, the prosumer cannot say that okay, मुझे बिजली नहीं चाहिए. You do it unless and until he trips off the breaker. Why? Because then maybe the consumer is going for a summer holiday or maybe going for a vacation. So I have to give it. But that time he has to trip off. That particular breaker should trip off so that there is no shunt connection. There is no electrical connection over there. Right? Otherwise, my electrical dynamics, if there is a load connected and we know that the current will always follow the least impedance or the least resistance path. So it has two stages. The one stage, the local control level. At the second stage, the higher peer-to-peer level. The third party intermediate is the centralized P2P station. I told you, consumer oriented fully. As I told you, the decision making strategy, I will only provide the consumer with the different decisions, and the decisions have to be taken by the consumer. So what we up till now, what we have developed is we have developed a grid interactive building energy strategy with a peer-to-peer power sharing mechanism. The power electronic interfacing and the control of power electronic interfacing is beyond the scope, because whenever we talk about grid integration, there are two things. One is the power system dynamics, because our electrical grid is not ready for such a dynamic strategy of distributed energy resources and the storages, and the power electronic interfacing. Right now we can work on the, as I told you, on the implementation and fault detection and diagnosis. How, whatever I have said to you that everything is very good, बहुत अच्छा चल रहा है everything. What will happen if I fail? What is my contingency strategy? Right? So that needs to be worked upon. That is what is one of the way forward that we can work upon right now. And also, what is the simulation based building energy control with peer-to-peer power sharing strategy? That in geographically, I have residential buildings, commercial buildings, a hospital, a commercial mall, and also some other buildings, governmental buildings also. And a very interesting thing that I've learned from my postdoc thing was this smart grid with social smartness. My system was was ready, and we went there to have the experimental analysis. Of course, academically, I was also inclined towards having a good research paper, and without having the experimental analysis, a good research paper to come up needs to, the chances are less. When we went there, because I can say this openly, there's nothing to hide. हुआ क्या कि when we went there to a Baake Bazaar district, we had different routers, those meter boxes, which were driven by a 130 volt single phase AC supply and had the USB output ports 5 volt to 8 volt, and we were having the different DC appliances over there. There were few of the households which were not ready to share their energy to the neighbors because they had a problem with them, and they said that कि वो हमारे caste के नहीं है. Right? So that means even though my algorithm says that you will get a good profit, you will do all of this, but there are certain social aspects that needed to be taken into consideration, which did not, because as I told you in the table also, mine was fully customer oriented, fully consumer oriented. So the ultimate decision maker is the consumer, right? The problem with this is why it should be worked upon. Ki itna kya important research topic hai. The problem is that if that both consumers start to behave like that, then my microgrid power system dynamic operation fails, because it is expecting that okay, the energy will be shared among them, and the microgrid scenario, the demand supply ratio will be maintained within the limits. But if it is not being shared upon, then the microgrid distribution operator, which is the centralized peer-to-peer station, has to take a supplementary supervisory control action. So that is where, so what we have to do, how do we do it mathematically? I take into consideration some another parameter, which is the consumer willingness index. And how do I incorporate inside the model? How do I make the model self-learning? What are, as I told you, that the forecasting studies need to be worked upon. The scalability is nothing but the contingency. Who will own this peer-to-peer power sharing or the grid interactive building energy system model? Will the centralized peer-to-peer station own it? If then, what will be the tariff strategy? If the each and every user is being owned upon, what is the tariff strategy? All the microgrid can be regarded as one peer, and there are different microgrids over there. And can there be a peer-to-peer strategy among the different microgrids? So this is what in future I'm really looking forward to, where I'm looking towards is developing a tool that can evaluate the techno-economic, the socio-techno-economic analysis for a prosumer-based energy systems, and also what are the environmental impacts. The environmental impacts is right now not under my immediate supervision, but we can assess how the energy analysis can be taken into the consideration. These are the references which you may see. Thank you so very much for the patient listening. Thank you so much to the Honorable Head of the Department of Electrical and Electronics Engineering. Thank you, Dr. Viral sir, for giving me the opportunity. Thank you, ma'am, for the introduction. I am ready to take any of the questions.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Over to you, ma'am.
Thanks, sir. Now I request the participants, if you are having any queries, you just raise your hand. There are some few queries. Dharmendra Kumar, Dr. Dharmendra Kumar, you can unmute your mic. Please unmute your mic from your end, and then you can ask the query.
Yes, ma'am. May I ask?
Yes, yes, you can ask.
Okay. Very good evening to all of you. And dear sir, nice and quite well knowledge discussed by you in this session. So my question is that in slide in multi-layered building energy model, as you told, there are different wall sites, and we select the resistor and capacitor values. So my question is that, so how do you select the rating of resistor and capacitor as different sides of wall, like and roof as well as floor temperature are different?
Yes. So what we do is we, as I told you here, the numerical models input, which is actually to see the model is being modeled. I think I have a diagram here also. No need to draw. Just a second. Yeah. So it will be modeled numerically as a mesh analysis. So it will be a finance difference equation. So the building space temperature here will be dictated depending upon the outdoor air temperature. If you have a partition wall where it does not have an outdoor, but it is of another room, so this temperature will be different, right? So when this will be different, outdoor air temperature will be different, this profile will be different, and this profile values will be different, the indoor air temperature will be different. When this indoor air temperature will be different, this reference point will be different. If this reference point will be different, the error will be different. So my optimization algorithm will give me different values of R's and C's for different walls which are exposed to different outdoor environment. Was I able to answer, sir?
Okay, thank you, sir. And one more question is that actually we are talking about the smart grid, smart cities, smart villages, right? But about last 7 years in India, right? So my question is that in rural areas, supply voltage quality in terms of magnitude, waveform, reliability, and continuity of supply are very poor, especially in rural areas. Actually, I belong to Gorakhpur and Kushinagar district. So what we have observed, the voltage level of 30 volt, 40 volt in my village. So it is very difficult to run electrical appliances.
Yes.
Because motor, fridge, and even an LED bulb was not glowing properly, right? So, how to convert existing poor system in a smart system, a smart grid, please?
Sir, there's always, I can understand what you are saying, sir. मैं समझ पा रहा हूँ. There is a program which is already been launched by the central government. It is called as Restructured Accelerated Development Reforming Program, RADRP. They have already given funds to all the distribution companies, and the distribution companies will need to be looked upon it. They are going either through renovation and reforming of the at particular each and every distribution transformers, and also looking at the cables. And what they have done right now is that rural feeder में ही उन्होंने agricultural feeder को बिल्कुल अलग कर दिया अब, because problem, what was the thing right now was that the rural feeder and the agricultural feeder being mixed upon, because the agricultural feeder electricity in India being a center concurrent subject, and it is politicized subject as well, and there is a heavy subsidy as well. So for due to which the rural feeders were being what we call were being somewhat getting punished upon. So the first step that has been taken is to differentiate the agricultural feeder and the rural feeder. एग्रीकल्चरल फीडर पे ब्यूरो ऑफ एनर्जी एफिशिएंसी के साथ एग्रीकल्चरल डिमांड साइड मैनेजमेंट के थ्रू काम हो रहा है, एंड रूरल फीडर्स पे एनर्जी एफिशिएंसी सर्विसेज लिमिटेड और नेशनल प्रोडक्टिविटी काउंसिल के साथ RADRP पे काम हो रहा है, as far as I can knowledge is concerned. So that is what the answer of your question is, that it is being worked upon, sir.
It is true. I have observed in my village that rural supply is different and agricultural supply is different.
Okay, thank you, sir. But it's not in Gorakhpur right now available. We hope.
Sorry, sir.
Actually, in Gorakhpur areas, basically belong to Eastern UP, there was a same feeder. They supply to agriculture load and as well as
yeah, that may be the case.
Thank you,
that
sir, for valuable knowledge.
Oh, yes, thank you, thank you.
Okay. So the next query is from Dr. Javed Dhilo. You can ask your query.
Hi, sir.
Namaste,
I'm
sir.
audible.
Yes, sir.
So your presentation is very well explained, but I have a little doubt.
Yes, sir.
The system you have considered connected with the grid, and when we're going to consider distribution system, the frequency problem is not too much in the distribution system because load is not going to affect the frequency, and all the frequency has been stabilized by the grid. Why we are going to consider frequency sensitive load when the system is connected with the main grid?
Otherwise, sir, I won't be exactly, sir, because I have to model it in my system, right? I have to model it in my computer. So if I will not take that into consideration, how would my computer or how would the virtual computer understand that this is actually a system? That's how we do the infinite bus also, right? Because we do it, why do we model it as an infinite bus? Because we need our model to understand that, okay, this is a grid, so it can be an infinite sink and it can be an infinite source as well. So in order to make that all the dynamics to be taken into consideration, I have to model it in my equations, which is very less percentage, as you have rightly pointed out. It is very less percentage, but in order to make it much more closer to the reality in my computer system, I have to tell it that this is the thing. So for that, I have to take that into consideration, sir.
Okay, and how are we going to consider voltage-based problem?
Sir, usme problem aaya tha, that's why I have not shown the results. That is something that I'm still working on. Because what happens is practically, if you see my peer-to-peer, the computationally, I got a good advantage that it was a completely DC-based system.
Okay.
In Baki Bazaar. But if I have to develop it with a grid-ready solution, I have to take into consideration the reactive power flow also. So either I will be working, if it becomes at a larger level, either we can work with DStatCom or distribution facts devices.
Is there have any standard model, standard building model which we can refer, like IEEE33 bus system? Like that?
For what, sir? For what, sir?
For building any standard model.
No, sir. That's why, as I told, that's why we got the paper in applied energy. There is, like, you can go to MATLAB Simulink and you can have a 3-phase source or a 3-phase load, but you cannot have a building. You need to model it, sir.
I'm just doubtful how I can validate my result, whether I'm getting a right result or not.
Two things, sir. Either you have to validate, there are 3 types of validation. One is analytical validation as per the ASHRAE standards. One is analytical validation, one is experimental validation, one is intra-model comparison validation. ASHRAE says that these are certain softwares like Design Builder, Energy Plus, eQuest, DOE, Transys. You can use those softwares, have your model, get the outputs, or console, get the outputs. The same model you develop in your MATLAB, PSCAD or something, compare those 2 outputs. That's an inter-model comparison, and that is acceptable. That is also validation.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so next query is from Dr. Sachin Mishra. Sir, you can unmute your mic.
Hello, Dr. Harish.
Namaste, sir. Hello, sir.
Hopefully, you will be doing good. Only small query I am having. The control, the closed loop, what you had shown just now for 3R2C for the building, the walls. Hello, are you able to hear me? Yeah, this one.
Sir.
Is my voice audible?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. The closed loop what you had shown just now, just a query is there because what Dharmendra sir has asked regarding the temperature. So when we are talking about HVAC, then we do take care of different parameters when we go for HVAC. We do take care of the direction of the facing of the room or the building. Then we do take care of the number of the occupant and the leakage air and all those parameters. So
Yes.
are we taking care of this thing here also?
Yes, sir. In the that is वो थोड़ा architectural aspect इसलिए I didn't explain. We take into consideration the wind speed in meter per second, and we take into consideration the wind orientation. At what degree with reference to the horizontal axis, because the very first thing that I give to my model is the latitude and longitude of the system site, and then the orientation of each and every walls in terms of the wind velocity and in terms of the wind orientation. Also, depending upon the wind velocity and wind orientation, we also get this horizontal solar radiation. And the parameters I have taken is from the NASA's website, and also the system advisor model, which gives you a different time sample, gives the all the parameters, the weather parameters.
Okay,
So that was
Harish,
the first question.
just one more question. When we are talking about the number of occupant, then the heat released, number of occupant, the heat released by a body. So that has been also been considered.
Sir, that
for
is
HVAC.
dependent. Yes, that has been taken into consideration indirectly through the building's functionality for the weighing factors, where I gave the example of being in a gym or being in a library. So because I am not working on the wireless sensor networks where I have a sensor that would judge the through the infrared judge the heating analysis or through CFD analysis. So how do I tell my computer system? I tell my computer system that the occupant is saying that okay, my HVAC have put the thermostat set point setting. Sir, actually, my main focus is on using. We know that for a simple air conditioner system, if this is the HVAC system and this is my building, I get the output here. I have a feedback sensor. And then through this, a simple control mechanism. This is the error, and this is the reference input. The reference input is being set by the thermostat, by the occupant. My main focus is that this reference will be changed according to the times of the supply from the distribution utility, DISCOM. So this is my major function. For calculating the HVAC system, what is the functionality of the building will be dictated by the multi-objective optimization, which I have taken into consideration. The three weighing factors: lambda T for thermal comfort, lambda L for illumination comfort, and lambda C for the CO2 concentration. So when you say about the different metabolism, if the number of occupants is more, I believe that the occupant will change the thermostat setting, right, through the smart HVAC. I am not bothered. My focus is not on making a smart air conditioner. I am bothered about taking कोई भी air conditioner हो जो already existing है. For that also, I can develop a grid interactive building energy system. So that is my main focus, sir.
Okay, Harish, one last question. That
Yes,
I had talked about one parameter, that is the leakage air.
Infiltration
So
and
how you can
exfiltration.
model that particular parameter when we are talking about going for HVAC system modeling?
Here, sir, we have taken that as infiltration or exfiltration.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Harish. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, I think all the queries has been resolved. Thank you very much, sir. Your session is indeed a very informative and interactive session. So Thanks again from all the organizing team. So this is the end of today's technical session. The next technical session for the 4th day of FDP will start at 11 a.m. But before that, yes, sir, you want to say something?
I want to thank Dr. Harish personally because I thought it was a very good session.
Yes, sir. It is very interactive and informative session.
Very informative, and he has taken a lot of pain. He was writing side by side, so he has prepared well. So just we are thinking that we are a student and our professor is teaching. That was the feeling.
And sir, we should congratulate Dr. Harish. Now he is going to be joined NSUT.
Congratulations.
New Delhi.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, madam.
It was a very good lecture, very good talk. Thank you, Dr. Harish.
Thank you, Harish, for accepting our invitation and your valuable time.
Thank you, sir.
So regarding the, I just want to announce regarding the attendance. All the attendance for each and every day we are taking from the MS Team log, and the feedback will be taken on the last day, and we will be having all the concluding ceremony on the last at the 5th day of the FDP. So thank you all for making time in your busy schedule to join us. It has been our pleasure to host this event, and I wish you all a wonderful day. Thanks to all of you.